EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. John, a beautiful Friday morning to you, sir. Only a couple more Football Fridays until football returns. Good to be back in the saddle this week with you. How you doing on this Football Friday?
Yeah, how's the conditioning? You didn't Joel Embiid it, did you?
No,
You're not prepared to go for a full week. We didn't go a full week, so we don't know. So came back on Tuesday. So
yeah, that's right.
you might have to get your legs back.
Yeah, exactly. I'm shaking the rust off, Johnny Mac, but I'm feeling pretty good on this Football Friday. Excited to talk some Birds. So we'll do that. But I'm feeling pretty good. It's good to be back, though. I will say that. I mean, Italy was fun and all, but I told you when I got back, after about 8 or 9 days, it's just like, all right, get me back to the USA. So it's good to be back and talking football again.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. And you're not unique. That happens to everybody. You know, no matter how, even if you're enjoying vacation, you always, those last couple, you're like, all right, this was great, but I got to get back. Most people have that sort of feeling. Or there's other people who have the opposite, and everywhere they go, they want to move there.
Yeah,
So
might be Mike Gill. Mike Gill comes back and books another 3-week trip somewhere else.
Yeah. So it's like the two extremes, basically. But most people, I would say, are in your category.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, Johnny Mac, we are about 18 days out here from the Eagles reporting to training camp. I know you mentioned that there will be a little bit of a ramp-up period. A couple good topics I'm going to talk about today on the show. Maybe we'll have a little fun. We'll take some super chats from all the great people of JAKIB Nation in the last half hour of the show or so. So if you guys have any questions or anything about the season, don't feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll do a little chat check later in the program. But, John, as we get closer to camp here, I know something we talked about a little earlier was safety, and that was top of mind in terms of a potential position where Howie could add. But that's where I want to start today is Howie Roseman and where he might add to this roster still with about 18 days out from camp. I don't know that it will come before camp, but where are the positions, John, that you think Howie could – maybe not rest on his laurels so much and try and add to the roster at this point?
Yeah, I think the one obvious one is certainly safety. Everything else, I think, has been sort of the last piece was probably Michael Jordan as backup offensive lineman. They already pulled that trigger. So that's not to say, he has a history of going into camp and seeing what you have and then making a move in August. Saw it last year with Jacorian Bennett for Thomas Booker, which didn't work out. But who knows? Maybe it works out better moving forward. So I think there's two levels to it. I think going into camp, the only place you would see them potentially adding is safety, but that doesn't mean when they get into camp and if things aren't going well, that they won't make a move at certain other positions that maybe don't have depth or at least don't have proven depth. Obviously, so offensive line being the most notable. They got a boatload of bodies, but none of them are proven. And they have 9 guys who are second year or rookie players. 9. So, I mean, last year they had the 3 day 3 picks. You had Drew Kendall, you had Miles Hinton, you had Cameron Williams. They got Willie Lampkin off waivers, from the Rams. Everybody's excited about him. They brought in Holland Pierce and Jake Majors, undrafted guys. And this year they drafted, obviously, Markel Bell, Micah Morris on day 3, and you have Jaden Roberts as an undrafted guy. So that's a lot of dart throws, man. And you'd feel more comfortable if Jeff Stoutland was here, thinking about development from that aspect of it. Chris Cooper might be great at it, but we don't know. That's unproven as well. So, and you mentioned Ed Ingram pointing out that, which we've mentioned on the show, there's certain guys, Ed Ingram most notably, and Garrett Bradbury, who did not perform well in Minnesota. And you say during the time, well, maybe they misevaluated, but the problem is they went elsewhere and played well. That's the problem. So it's really an uncertain landscape from both a personnel and coaching standpoint now. But they do have a lot of bodies, and you don't need all 9 of them to hit. You need like 2 of them to hit. And the most notable ones you prefer would be probably Drew Kendall and Markel Bell, and we'll see how that goes. But there's no proven depth on the offensive line for the most part, with the exception of Fred Johnson at tackle, and now they brought in Michael Jordan as a guard. So they need to develop some of those guys. Quarterback, obviously, they don't need to add. Running back, they don't need to add. Wide receiver, you could argue they need a higher level guy, but they don't need to add from a depth standpoint. Tight ends, they're got a lot of bodies similar to offensive line. If you want to play a heavier 13 personnel, you need more impactful players. So in that case, Eli Stowers is going to have to ramp up pretty quickly, and we'll see if they can get that done. Very deep at defensive tackle as usual. Deeper than they have been on the edge in a long time, I would say. And by long time, I mean 2-3 years in the NFL. So pretty good there. Pretty good at linebacker. I would say with Trotter and Small Munden, even they like Chance Campbell a lot. So that's a guy who I think a lot of people don't know about, but it's a pretty good football player. And then corner is the deepest it's been in Vic's, certainly the Vic era, by bringing in not only Reek Woolen as a starter, but also Jonathan Jones as that main backup, who's a good player. So it's a pretty solid roster depth-wise, with the exception of offensive line and safety. And, from a starter position, really safety is the only thing you have to be concerned about.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good breakdown there, Johnny Mac. You brought up tight end. We'll go to that a little bit. I want to go back to the offensive line as you did bring up Chris Cooper and obviously Markel Bell. At this point, John, it almost feels like it would be a welcome sign if Markel Bell was able to beat out Fred Johnson to be the swing tackle. I don't know if that will be the case. He is a first-year player, but I guess that would be the only good sign we could get from Chris Cooper this year, because I don't think Chris Cooper is going to get much credit for Jordan Mailata or Lane Johnson or any of those other guys. So, a little concerned about the other players going somewhere and playing different. Like, you look at Stoutland. One guy that just comes to mind off the top of my head, a first-round pick that didn't do anything, was Andre Dillard. But Andre Dillard never went anywhere. I know he went somewhere else. I don't think he was ever turned into a good player.
No.
If they didn't play well with Stoutland, you could almost guarantee they weren't going to play that great elsewhere. I don't know. You haven't seen that with Cooper early in his career. So that would be the one concern there. But I'd like to see Markel Bell come on a little bit. I'm not sure whether he will or not.
There have been guys who sustained, Isaac being the most notable.
Yeah, right. There's guys
who's a good player still, as he ages. But yeah, I mean, there's not somebody who didn't perform here and then went and performed somewhere else, basically. So I mean, that to me is the key. Personnel over players over plays. So, Chris Cooper's going to be fine with the starting 5 if they're healthy, because they're good.
Right.
He's inheriting a finished product. but it's fair to wonder how can he develop guys, especially when, you got a guy who didn't develop under him and who's developed under somebody else and who's taken pass aggressive shots. And, Garrett Bradbury hasn't done that, but he wasn't very good under Chris Cooper, and he was pretty good under in New England. So, and Will Fries is a third guy who was a pretty good player in Indianapolis, signed a big contract in Minnesota, didn't perform as well in Minnesota as he did in Indy. So, I mean, there's some troubling signs, I would say. But, sometimes with players, Chris Carter's the best example here. People should know the Buddy Ryan story. Chris Carter obviously turns into a Hall of Fame receiver, one of the best receivers ever, best hands I've ever seen, I'll tell you that. But, he caught a lot of touchdowns here, and Buddy was famous for that. All he does is catch touchdowns comment, which is bad enough, but people don't know. And Chris later admitted it and thanked Buddy. He had a serious drug problem. And he's basically, at some point there's real life overtakes football. Buddy's trying to help him with a, tough love approach. Look, some people need, and I'm not saying Ed Ingram has, that's a drastic example. What I'm trying to say is some people need a kick in the ass, a reboot. They need to say, all right, I'm wasting my talent. I'm not playing well. They got rid of me because I stink, basically. And maybe it's just that. But that's the most positive and optimistic spin. I think it's fair to be wary about what he did developmental wise in Minnesota. And then the second part is they didn't want him, But as we know here, scapegoats are scapegoats. Sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes it is fair, but you got to make moves when you have a disappointing season. I mean, it's not Chris Cooper's fault that JJ McCarthy can't play a lick.
Yeah, right.
But somebody's got to pay. So I mean, and a few coaches obviously had to pay. That's just the way it is. So it's not by any means that there, there's no doubt he can't do it, but there's enough flags to where you say we have to see if he can do it.
Fair enough, John. We'll see what they end up doing there. They also have the other guys, like some previous picks, John, like Miles Hinton, Cam Williams. I don't know if anybody's expecting them to emerge. They are late round picks, but you would hope one of them would hit. I guess you haven't seen much from them this summer. Obviously, it's spring work.
Offensive line with no pads is the dumbest thing in the history of the world. Yeah, right. I love when people talk. Markel Bell looked pretty good. I'm like,
well, when are you going to see him with pads? It's not even in camp. Is it? It's like late in camp?
Yeah, it's like 5 days in. You got to wait.
All right, 5 days in. That's not bad. So somewhere around early.
And you have limited. There's a limit, I believe, 10 or 11. A limit. So you got to be judicious with them. Your padded practices, but you do have that acclimation period, they call it, where you can't just throw them on, and that's probably a good thing because guys will get hurt and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, more than any other position, all the physical positions. So offensive line, defensive line, but even more offensive line, you can't tell anything until the pads come on, and that's where, like I said, the defense dominating in the spring. Well, wait till Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata get out there in pads. Let's see how it looks. Makes a big difference.
No doubt. John, the one clear spot is obviously safety, as you referenced at the start of the question and your answer. What percentage do you think where would you put it if I forced you to go? We were doing that earlier with the A.J. Brown trade where you were going 50-50, you were changing. Where would you put it on acquiring a safety a starting caliber safety for this team before the start of the season?
I'm 60-40. They'll go outside the organization.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're good enough. Other than, it helps that Cooper's going to play there in base, but that's maybe 10, 15 at the most plays a game. So that might lessen the urgency a little bit. If Cooper wasn't playing safety in the base, I'd go probably 80%.
Yeah, right.
You need a big second year from Drew Makuba. That's number one. And number two, you're talking about Marcus Epps, who's aging and not the player he once was, but he's steady and he knows how to play and he'll line up correctly and he won't make mistakes. And then you have Michael Carter, who they're trying to essentially turn into a safety because they like some of the traits he showed as a slot corner. So those are the two guys you're talking about. And on paper, that's not good enough, but they'll have probably 2-3 weeks of camp to prove that they can do it. And if they're not looking like they can do it, Howie will certainly go outside the organization. I now the question is, do we have a Steve Nelson scenario? If you remember when Steve Nelson was here for the 1 year,
he came pretty late, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was 2 days before camp, and he took every first team rep immediately.
It's pretty amazing. 2 days before camp, he shows up and boom, first team it is.
Yeah, and all year he never left the first team. It really had a solid impact on the team. Obviously, just a steady player. It's not the worst thing.
I remember some people were okay with the idea of potentially re-signing him. Obviously, they didn't, but that was
no.
talking.
Well, they wanted to get better, and that was 2021. And Nick's first year here, he basically played the whole season and did a really good job and solid. And that's what you're looking for if you can get that from Marcus Epps or Michael Carter. But do I see somebody from outside coming in like that? I don't. Because I don't think – remember that year they were trying to convince you that Zach McPherson as a fourth-round pick could potentially be a starting corner as a rookie. That's how bad they were at safety at that point. Corner, sorry. So they really – Marcus Epps you can play with. You saw last year when Drew Makuba got hurt. He was fine. Wasn't great, but he was fine. So I don't think you have the same sense of urgency. So I think those guys will get a couple weeks. And if they're trending in a positive direction, because the last thing I know everybody wants big names and they want Buda Baker and they again, how many times we got to talk about how many players they got to pay? You can't add a top line safety. And you got to pay Jalen Carter, and you just pay Jordan Davis, and you got to pay Quinn. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but they got to prove that they can. Now, the best case scenario would be you got to find that CJ Gardner-Johnson level player who's in the final year of his rookie deal that is, for whatever reason, is not a starter where he is and maybe has some upside that people don't know about yet, but those are typical to find, I would say.
Yeah, Gardner Johnson was the one. And then who did you do in 23? I think it was Kevin Byard, right? They brought in about halfway through the year or something.
Yeah, that was a trading deadline. And it
didn't work out, but it does show you that Howie will move at that position. And it is one of the positions that they kind of maybe let go until later. John kind of explained perfectly the in-house right now, the internal answer with DeJean to base, and then the battle between Epps and Michael Carter and Makuba will be obviously the other one. So we will see, John. I think the reason that your 60% makes a lot of sense, and we talked about this on the show previously, I think maybe a month or two ago, but Howie Roseman kind of said it, didn't he? Back at the was it the owners' meetings that he said they'll add to that position? He said we still have the draft. We have a lot of players available. The only player they've added since then, I believe, has been Cole Wisniewski in the 7th round of the NFL draft. Now, I don't think that means Howie Roseman checked off the box by adding a 7th rounder, but I do think he could go and do it. Any names that you think, John, would make some sense? I know people do love to talk about the Buda Bakers of the world, but I happen to be with you. I don't think that's entirely realistic. Any names you think that could be out there? I know you'd probably have to look a little bit to see who's on an expiring deal or something like that.
I'm not really interested in the veterans. They have veterans. So again, and the big name guys who are expensive, I'm not saying Buda Baker wouldn't be better, because he certainly would. But the problem is he's too expensive. And even the Grant Delpits of the world who could potentially be gotten are too expensive.
How about Justin Reed? Doesn't he have some experience with Vic too in the past?
I'd have to look, but I'm not a big. I don't think that's going to make you better at this stage of his career. And Vic's more about coverage safeties.
Maybe he wasn't with Vic. It might be a coverage similarity. I have to look at that, but.
Well, that's a good chance. There's a good chance that just about every player's been in Vic's scheme, whether it's college or pro.
That's true. So, that's very true.
So there's some familiarity, but yeah, bigger name. Everybody knows the name. But I wouldn't. That wouldn't bowl me over personally.
So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing there at a safety position. John, good starting segment there on the moves that potentially Howie could make. I want to focus in on one specific player here coming out of that segment for segment number 2 here. I want to thank and welcome everybody for being here. One of the players in the conversation that we just had is Cooper DeJean, John. He's going into year 3, obviously, has been a stellar player for the Eagles his first 2 years. Playing a lot at the nickel corner spot, and now will be playing safety in base. How do you see his role evolving, John? I mean, I didn't hear the full podcast because I was away and I didn't get a chance to hear it, but I did see the quote that Fangio said, "Coop, your days at corner are hopefully over." I don't think that means nickel. I think that means on the outside, obviously. But how do you kind of see Cooper DeJean's role evolving here as he goes into year 3, 4, and then, with potentially a big contract to boot, what could that look like post-contract? Let's focus in on Cooper DeJean a little bit here.
Well, yeah, just to your point, I mean, for those who aren't experts in Vicky's, he calls outside corners. He calls them corners. Slots are slots. He considers them different positions. So you're exactly right. When he says, hopefully your days at corner, he means outside corner.
Right.
Obviously he likes him a lot in the slot and doesn't want to move him. And they're able to get Reek Woolen. So that should work out well. But we'll see how it does shake out, and that enables him to move back to safety where the need is. So basically, if the need was still at corner, he'd still be there. Or if the bigger need was at safety, and that's the beauty of the versatility of the player. He can play anywhere in the secondary and do a more than a capable job. And that's important, whether you want to call them positionless players. When you have guys who can move around, it really impacts the offense from the standpoint of, what is the role he's playing on a particular play. You have to understand that. So if he's moving from slot to safety, or sometimes he's a glorified linebacker. He's playing that role. And people will say, and that's why the labeling aspect of it, too many people get caught up in that. So they'll say, well, they have 6 DBs on the field. They're playing dime. Not necessarily.
Right. Cooper's almost like becoming a positionless weapon in the defense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when you have those types of players. I think Tom was talking about that with the Kelseys. I believe it's, it's hard because first you have to identify them of what they're doing first, what their role is, because they might be playing linebacker, they might be playing safety, they might be playing slot.
Right.
And you have to realize what the defense is doing and what the concepts is, because dime's a lot different than if somebody's playing a glorified linebacker role. So it's really important. Kyle Hamilton is probably the best player like that in the NFL. I always talk about Josh Metellus in Minnesota, who's not as gifted, but can play everywhere. And it just makes it hard for the opposing quarterbacks to diagnose things. And that's always a goal of Vic Fangio. So, I mean, you're going to see in our list, our top 25 list, Cooper's going to be really high. I'm not going to give out where he landed, but he's going to be really high. He is a hell of a football player. I say it all the time. And you almost don't want to label him. Oh, he's a corner. He's a slot. He's a safety. He's their best punt returner. But by the way,
he's just a hell of an athlete. He's just an unbelievable athlete, Cooper DeJean.
That pisses me off. They don't have a punt returner. Everybody, no, they don't have a punt returner. They had a tryout player. Who was it? I forget. A tryout player taking punts in the spring, and everybody's like, well, they don't have a punt returner. Are they going to have to keep Covey again for a roster spot? They got a great punt returner. They just won't use them because of this mentality. Oh, we'll get hurt. No, we won't. Let them do it.
Yeah, but at what point does it become silly to have one? I mean, they have them addressing safety. They have them addressing slot. I mean, it's smart because it solves multiple problems with one player. But do you spread that too thin at some point, J-Mac?
I think he can do. I think he'd love it. He'd love it.
I think he would love it too.
You think Cooper DeJean is worried about? Hey, Cooper, we're punting. He runs out there, catches the punt, and goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get that mentality. Now Vic wouldn't like it, so you want to make him happy.
Yeah. Vic would definitely not like it. It's not a very good position for a player to be in, receiving punts.
I just think it's when people say the Eagles don't have a punt returner, they actually have a really great punt returner that they won't use. Now they'll use them in high leverage spots, or they might even use Devontae.
Remember Devon's going to say Devontae. They used to use Devontae in the high leverage spots when the team was pinned deep.
But there's this mentality that you're going to get hurt, and it's like there's no evidence of that. There's none. How many punt returners? They're all fine. Of course, anybody can get it. It's the NFL. Anybody can get hurt at any time. But I'm saying there's no added risk other than you're adding the number of reps where, we all might get hit by a car crossing the road today. And the more reps you do it, the more likely.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't think that way. And I'm going to use my best players to win games. And he would be really impactful as a punt returner, and I wish they would let him do it.
Isn't it the old risk reward analysis though? I mean, the risk that you take, is it great? Is it bigger than the reward is worth?
I don't think so, but that's my personal opinion. But they're not going to do it don't by no means take this conversation as they're thinking about it. They're not going to do that. And I think it's silly. Not just the Eagles, every team. If you have somebody who can do it, who happens to be a great player on defense or offense, just let them do it. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
but they're not going to let them do it.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. I do think Cooper's getting into a territory, where he already is to some extent, but when you have a guy who's, playing multiple positions and you're relying on him for that, he's becoming more and more indispensable, John, as his contract looms. Probably after the year is when I expect him to do that, because he was a second-round draft pick. He will not have a fifth-year option or even the opportunity to have a fifth-year option. I don't think Howie's letting him go into the lame duck season with the Eagles, because his agent will say, you get to the open market, my friend, you'll be getting $30+ million. So with the contract looming, John, how do you see that? I know it's foreshadowing a little bit out into the future, but I do think Cooper's been identified as a key player for this team. The Eagles like to pay their key players early, and I expect them to do so with Cooper DeJean next year. What do you think that looks like, John?
Yeah, pretty significant. I mean, I think Quinyon is the one who will set the market, and he'll go over, I guess it's McDuffie now.
Yeah. Which will be what? 30? What was McDuffie? 31?
31, I think. And then you have Sauce and Stingley. And then I think Cooper would fit in right underneath that, probably in the 27, 28-ish range, which would be enormous for a slot. So you can probably get away with paying him a little bit less because he's not an outside corner. And again, labels in the NFL. I personally think if you have a good slot corner, he's more valuable than a good outside corner. There's so few good slot corners. There really are.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean really impactful ones.
It feels like a position, John, that a lot of teams kind of just put together with duct tape and bubble gum.
Yeah, and it's kind of dumb because they have more of an impact on the game. Like, as good as you are as a corner, I mean, they don't have to throw at you if you're on one side of the field.
Yeah, but it does feel like pre-Cooper DeJean, the Eagles were kind of doing the same thing, before Vic. I mean,
everybody.
It was
everybody
who was the dude? Avante Maddox was in there at time. I mean, it felt like the Eagles didn't really.
They had that, and the terrible year, they used like 9 bodies at slot when Sean Desai was here. Now, part of that was injury related, and they're bringing in Bradley Roby to try to calm it down. It was a disaster. Avante was pretty good at it for a while, but he always, got hurt. But I mean, a true superstar player. They have a superstar player now. And most of the guys who do it and do it well at a high level are safeties, really. Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James,
right,
plays in the slot.
It seems to be more of a transitory skill set with safeties more so than
it is. It's a mirrored position, as the Eagles will tell you. And you're more impactful on you're just more involved in the action. But they pay outside corners more, even though they just did Fowler did the cornerbacks the other day, and Quinyon was 6, which was kind of low. I thought he'd be higher than that. And Cooper was 10th, which I don't think you should jumble. Again, they're different positions, but so the guys ahead of him were like, I forget who was one. Surtain was one. It's a really good player.
Surtain was one. I think Stingley was up there.
Yeah, Stingley's really good. J.C. Horn's really good. I don't know where he was.
I don't think he was above Quinyon. I think Christian Gonzalez was one.
Yeah, there's no way he should be above Quinyon.
I think
good
Quinyon
player, but great. No way.
Honestly, John, I would take Quinyon Mitchell over Derek Stingley. Now, maybe that's Eagle glasses, but
I mean, I wouldn't yell at you for that, but I wouldn't yell at somebody who's saying Stingley. I mean, they're both
all right, that's fair. It's like pick your flavor type of thing.
Sauce Gardner, he's probably the most talented corner. Not probably is, but I don't think he's been consistent enough. So I mean, either way, he's in the conversation for being the top outside corner. But, if we talk about valuable, if I had to pick one, I'm keeping Cooper. Luckily, you don't have to keep one. You're going to pay them both.
Wait, if you could only keep one, Cooper or Quinyon, you would keep Cooper?
Yeah.
Wow. See, I think I'm the opposite. I don't know. That's hard to say. I'd get rid of Cooper DeJean. I just feel like bringing out Mitchell.
It has to do with he's more involved with the action. I mean, if you just, people just watch the game. He's more involved. He's because of the position.
But if all of a sudden you have a bad cornerback on the outside, well, they're going to be pretty involved quick because they'll be getting tormented. I mean, I remember when.
Well, no, I get it, but obviously, I'm projecting competency. I'm not, obviously, if you're the worst outside corner versus maybe the best outside corner, it's going to be drastic. But if you're talking about best outside corner versus competency versus, competency in the slot versus best in the slot, I'm taking the slot guy plus the versatility, plus the fact that he can play outside corner and safety.
Well, and that's part of Cooper DeJean's value more so than just obviously a traditional slot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I keep Cooper.
Yeah, I get it. I understand.
I'm just saying, if you force me to pick one, I'm bringing back both. I'm not trying to say that. To me, Cooper's more valuable just because of the position he plays, positions, and his versatility. I just said he's, their best punt returner. He could be a top 5 punt returner in the league.
This dude Cooper, you could probably put him on offense and he'd be pretty good.
Yeah, probably. So I mean, that's not. I'm sure people will take it that way. They always do. But yeah, I mean, Cooper's really good player.
What kind of money you think it's going to be? 30? Is that too high?
27, 28.
27, 28. And who and will he be paid more like a safety? Obviously, I mean, I think the top paid slot right now makes like 15. But the Eagles also just proved with Jordan Davis that they're not going to stick to the label as much as you might think, So
yeah, they're not going to lose him messing around with that nonsense. They're gonna pay him like a star corner.
Who is the highest paid safety in football?
Let's see.
Let me see if I can. Derwin James, 25.2.
Oh yeah, he just got his new deal.
Yeah, 3 years, 75.
But again, he plays more in the slot than he plays at safety.
Yeah, he's another guy that kind of lines up all over. He's an elite player, Derwin James.
And so is Kyle Hamilton's number 2. He's another guy. He plays more in the slot now than he plays at safety.
Right.
And then it's Kirby Joseph, who's more traditional. And Antoine Winfield Jr.
Is there anybody upcoming there that could blow that market open? Now it kind of looks like it just got blown open with Kyle and Derwin, right? I don't see another person.
Yeah. Buda Baker's 5th, which is why he's not coming here, by the way.
Yeah, and he's also, I mean, how old is Buda Baker now? I mean, he's been around.
Yeah, he's played a long time. I think
he's 30 years old. Yeah. So, but my point is, I don't think he's going to break the bank on a massive contract, to blow this thing open to 30 million or something.
But that, and Xavier McKinney's 7, and bring Xavier McKinney up because that's a player the Eagles really tried to sign.
Yeah, I remember that
a couple of years ago, and they really wanted him, and they really liked the player. But what that does is identify what style of safety they want, just pure coverage safety. And they bowed out because it got a little bit too expensive, but they would prefer the Xavier McKinney style safety than the Buda Baker style safety in Vic's scheme. But yeah, he's gonna be in the, if you want to call it, because everybody's got to put a label on everything for some point, but whether you consider him a safety, a slot, or a corner, he's certainly going to pay. He's going to destroy the slot market. If you want to put him, probably the closest category would be James and Hamilton, and he'll beat them by a couple million, I would think.
I think 27, 28 is a perfect projection there. I think there's a small chance the Eagles really reward him and give him 30. John, real quick, I just want to say this too as we talk about Quinion and Cooper. What an amazing story those two are with how they were drafted to Philadelphia. And two rookies really completely transformed the secondary of that football team. I mean, to the point where obviously they were as lights out as they were all the way through a Super Bowl victory. Now, obviously, they had help around them. They're not the only two guys, but I don't know of another instance. You see two rookies come in and transform the secondary of a team that's good enough to go and win a Super Bowl, really on the backs of their defense almost all the way through. I mean, pretty amazing what those two guys did their rookie year and now continue to ascend, obviously. Both had good years again last year.
Yeah, all pros last year.
Yeah.
Both of them. So, yeah, you don't see it happen. You don't. And I keep waiting for, because, you know, corner especially is a position where I always say you're going to get beat eventually. It's just because of the nature of the game. And
Yeah.
But and Quinion did a little bit in the San Francisco playoff game. That's as worst as probably as worse as it's gotten. But it's been pretty impressive. I mean, those two guys have been. I don't think Cooper's given up a touchdown pass yet. Still through 2 seasons. Yeah, I mean, you could argue they're the two best players on the team. I mean, that's how quickly things change. Like it's offense, it's Saquon, it's Jalen Hurts, it's Jalen Carter. That you can make a strong argument that since they've been here, they're the two best players on the team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They've been the most consistent the last 2 years. I mean, you look at Carter, who was dominant in 24, struggled in 25. Saquon dominant in 24, a little bit of a down year.
From a consistency standpoint, the only one in the conversation is Zach Bond.
Okay, Zach Bond. There you go. I like that. We got a conversation on Zach Bond coming up later in the show.
Because he's been here for 2 years and been pretty astonishing as well. So, and all three of them have been all pros, which is pretty good.
Do you think they will wait on Quinion next summer, or do you think they'll pick it up? Yeah, they won't, right? So you expect them both to get paid next summer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I don't think they're playing that game with waiting on Quinion Mitchell. So I expect both of them to get picked up. All right, good segment there. I want to thank and welcome everybody for being here. Wanted to talk a little Cooper DeJean after our conversation on where Howie could add in the safety position, obviously emerging as the number one spot where Howie could add here. John, my next segment here that I want to discuss is 2026 breakout candidates. Now, we've talked a little bit about this. Obviously, it's kind of baked into every conversation when you talk about as much as we talk about every area of the team, every position of the team, the depth, the starters, you name it. So it's kind of baked into some of our conversations. But I want to point out here the clear players that John McMullen thinks could be a breakout candidate. And I have also three names that I wrote down. We can use as many names as you like, as many that come to mind for you. But when it comes to 2026 breakout candidates, John, where do you start? What comes to mind? What do you start thinking about when I ask that question?
Well, number one, to me, you have to look at opportunity. Like if you look at Moro Ojomo last year, he got the opportunity, he delivered. Right. So you have to have playing time. So number one to me would be the obvious one would be Jihad Campbell.
Yep, that's number one on my list as well.
Because he's going to be the starting linebacker, and if he stays healthy, he's going to be a really good player. Then you start saying, well, who else is available to play? Who's got the opportunity? Because it's a very veteran entrenched team. If you want to go down the route of continued ascent, a lot of people are high on Jalix Hunt. I I personally think Nolan Smith is the guy
Yeah,
who was
I see
going to
it's
be
good. Sorry.
for a couple reasons that I think most people have missed. In that Jonathan Grenard is a natural right edge rusher, and that's what Jalix is. And Nolan Smith is a natural, what would be called a base end in the old school thinking, and is more comfortable on that side. So just from that standpoint, with Grenard here, I think Hunts may actually play a little bit less, depending on it. Nolan's got to stay healthy, which is a big if.
Yeah.
But if he
I put down
does,
both names on my list, John, and put that I think Nolan is going to edge him for me, just in terms of the chance of the
well,
break.
he's also still a better player.
Yeah, I mean, he had some better numbers last year. He was also coming off that, that injury that he had.
Yeah.
What was it? The torn triceps. So,
Yeah.
it's fair to wonder, was he fully healthy last year? I don't know. That's been an issue for him since he's come into the league. I hope he's fully healthy this year.
Yeah, I mean, you want to see him play 17 games, and I think if he does, people are going to be widely surprised, and the Eagles might be mildly surprised at how good he is, and he'll probably be back in the conversation for an extension. But big if, because I mean, he's still, in the spring he was still wearing that big brace on his triceps, so who knows, that might continue to be a problem. And he's very undersized to begin with. So I do think Jalix has a bigger upside long term, but I still think Nolan's the better player right now. And then the other guys I think about if they had the opportunity, like, and you never want to wish injuries, but who could deliver if they were forced to deliver. And my answer would be Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who I think can just flat out play.
Yeah.
But he's not going to have the opportunity.
I wonder if that's going to change their thinking on Bond in the future. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show.
I think about Byron Young up there. If he got significant playing time, and I'm not necessarily thinking about the rookies. That's why I'm not mentioning Mekhi Lemon, because he's going to play, and he's got to deliver. And there's going to be some growing pains, but I wouldn't consider him a breakout player as a first-round pick, but that's just my definition of it. And then Drew Kendall, if he's forced to play, I think he can play a little bit. So those are kind of the guys I think about. If you want to go guys who could, surprise if they got playing time, I would go towards EJ Jenkins at tight end and Chance Campbell, name I mentioned before.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. I'm curious to see on the tight end position, just because of, obviously with the projected new offense, do they feel as though they have enough guys in that room? Maybe Howie adds there if he doesn't like what he's seeing, but
he's got enough guys in that room. The question is, are they
good enough?
Yeah.
Right.
He's got 8 tight ends right now.
Ooh, man, that's a lot of tight ends. Can any of them hit? Are any of them worth it?
Well, Dallas is a good player still.
Yeah. And they used a second-round pick, obviously.
Yeah, and Eli, I just don't think Eli's going to be impactful right away. I think long term he'll be fine. So I mean, you might have some packages for him to take advantage of the athleticism. The problem, and Johnny Munt's a good blocker, but the problem is you're tipping your hand when Johnny's in the game or Eli's in the game. You're tipping your hand. That's why I think EJ Jenkins has a chance, because he can block and he can catch in theory. He's had too many problems with drops, so he's got to sharpen up there. And then Cameron Latu's sort of like fullback / tight end. He's a good blocker. And that's why I think, when we talk about, like, everybody's got out the pen and put, when they're doing their 53 and they put Johnny Munn in, don't put that in pen,
Right.
because Cam Latu he's got to prove it, but he's more physical.
I think he was down there with Jalen Hurts too in Florida. I think I saw him down there, wasn't he?
Yeah. He's more physical. He's younger. He's more versatile. So, don't sleep on him either.
You concerned about Eli Stowers?
No, I'm not, but I have different expectations than everybody else. I think he's the long-term replacement for. I think he's Markel Bell for Dallas Goedert. He's the long-term replacement.
No, I mean, a second-round pick, though, you got to understand why people will have bigger expectations for that player,
Well, I can't control that as Tom Brady.
But isn't it partly fair? I mean, some people say, like, a second-round pick is a guy who should contribute, start to contribute early. I don't know if he will or not, but.
Well, they might have some packages for him.
Like, I mean, will he ever even be a Y?
Not in a traditional sense, not like George Kittle. More like a Kyle Pitts type, I would say.
That's interesting because it doesn't feel like that's what they're looking for, but they drafted him, so maybe they are. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Remember, sometimes Howie drafts guys because he likes guys, and he's not drafting per scheme, which is a good thing. Because from Vic's standpoint, you don't know when Vic's going to call it quits.
Right.
You can't just say we're drafting people for Vic Fangio.
Right. You don't know when Sean Mannion will have a head coaching gig or be out the job completely.
Yeah, I mean, from talking to Howie after, they just like the player. Because I that was my mindset. That's how you think about it. And I was honed in on Max Clare as a guy who would be a fit for this offense. And lo and behold, the Rams took him. He's a fit for that offense. But the Eagles were looking at the player and his upside and his ceiling, which I think is enormous as a playmaker. And I think their belief is, because he's got a willingness to do it and he's got the body to add weight and get stronger, that he can be, you get a year in the weight room and a year with NFL level coaching, that he can be competent as a blocker long term. But the second part is a work in progress. I mean, Vanderbilt didn't even play him as a blocker, really. If you look at it, I mean, they took him off the field. And he's only been a tight end for 3 years. He was a quarterback in college. He was a quarterback as late as 2023 at New Mexico State. He's a quarterback early in his career at Texas A&M, or early in his college career. Then he went to New Mexico State. And then he went to Vandy, and they turned him into a tight end. And he was a part-time player because he was a dynamic receiver, but they didn't use him much in the blocking game. So he's a work in progress from that aspect of it.
Going to be interesting to see. John, when it comes to Jahad Campbell, a lot of excitement out of you, it feels like, on that player. Not excitement from the sense of a fan, but just as a reporter, you seem to have a lot of confidence in his abilities as a player. I don't want to discount the loss of Nakobe Dean. I do feel pretty comfortable with Jahad stepping in. The question I would have for you, though, is they are a very different skill set player. At least to me, they are. And what does that mean for the linebacker room as a whole? What does that mean for Zach Bond, who will obviously line up next to Jahad Campbell? How does that kind of change the dynamic of that room? I had Jahad Campbell as the number one breakout candidate on my list, as you did on yours. It's kind of the obvious name. But how does his skill set kind of alter what that room looks like this year for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, it makes you just more athletic and more more gifted on the defensive side. I mean, I love Nakobe Dean as well. I love him as a player. I love him as a person. You know, he's a leader. And certainly that's an intangible part you're gonna lose. There's not often where I don't agree with Vic on something, and I don't agree with Vic on what he did last year. I just don't agree with it. This guy would have been the defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, but they did get better, didn't they, when they put Nakobe Dean?
I don't think they did. I don't think they did. I think the perception was, you know, and I'm trying to look up the grades because I know PFF had him graded above Nakobe in every aspect, including run defense. So I think the perception is that, and I think, look, Vic had a lot of, you know, trust in Nakobe Dean, and a lot of coaches do. They trust veteran players, and they don't trust rookies. I said, you know, there was all this hype about how athletic and how good Jihad was going to be in coverage. And I kind of chuckled at that, to be honest, because, you know, young linebackers, doesn't matter how athletic they are. The best example of this is Devin White. They just make mistakes. They have bad, they don't have instincts. They're just athletes. And I think there's no, besides quarterback, there's no more position in football that is more reliant on instincts than linebacker. One false step turns a 4-4 into a 4-7, and, you know, you're out of the play basically. Whereas the Luke Kuechly's of the world who just key and diagnose everything, and Nakobe's really good at that. So I thought he ended up being the 5th best coverage linebacker in football, Jihad Campbell, number 5 of 81. And he's just so freaking long. He when you have long linebackers and you think about layering throws between the second and third, like often quarterbacks have to layer that throw between the second and third level over the linebackers in front of the DBs. Like, he's so long.
Yeah, I get why that would complicate things. The one area that I thought Nakobe did clearly improve was, you know, it gave him versatility from the blitz. Obviously, Nakobe was excellent at that.
That's where
they don't do that much.
He wasn't good at that. That's the crazy part. He wasn't good at that.
On the grades, I mean, it looked like he was good at it. No,
no, he wasn't good at that. That's the whole point. That was the worst part of his game, pass rushing,
really?
Which is why the Eagles drafted him.
The run defense did get better, didn't it, when Nakobe?
Yeah, he was good in run defense. He was good. He was great in coverage. He was good in run defense, and he was below average, or right about average as a pass rusher. But he was below average when they put him on the line. After Nakobe came back, he was, as an edge guy, he was below average. And he'll get better at that. That's where Nakobe was better than him as a blitzer. And that's it. But he'll get better at that. And he's like, I'm not going to call him Devin White from an athletic standpoint, but he's close. And he's got way more instincts than Devin White ever had. So now you're talking about that kind of athleticism, which everybody, oh my God, Devin White. And he takes false steps and he runs himself out of plays and he's undisciplined. And Jihad, you know, maybe because he went to Alabama, give your college a little pump up. Nick Saban's Alabama, not the nonsense they're running now, but
exactly.
He does it the right way. Yeah, there's very few things I push back on Vic, and I tell him to his face. I mean, dude, he shouldn't have taken him off the field.
Man, I'm
And I think
surprised.
that will
I am a
show
Kobe
this year.
Dean fan. I think he's a great player. I really do. Now, maybe the grades or whatever, maybe my eye test is lying to me, but hard for me to say that
What
Victor
did
Devon.
Jahad Campbell do in those first 7 games? Did
I
he
don't.
play one
It's
bad
see to
game?
me, it's not about Jihad being bad. I don't think it was about that at all. I just think having the field general of N'Kobe Dean, a guy who understood the defense inside out. He's a I think he provided a lot to that group of players. That's just how I felt. Now, again, I'm not professing to know it all, but
Well, it's an embarrassment of riches, but I'll tell you this, because they're both really good players, and it sounds like I'm disparaging N'Kobe, and I'm not, because he's a
no,
really
I
good
think you're more
player.
talking up Jihad Campbell as
Yeah.
how good he can be and
Wh-
was already.
When you have somebody playing as a top 10 linebacker in football, and that's what he was for those first 7 weeks, not just good rookie, top 10 linebacker in football, you don't take him off the field. You at least wait for the bad game, I said. It's probably going to have a bad game. I don't know when it was coming. And then you do it. Then I would have been fine. And I'm sure he would have had a bad game. And he'll have a bad game this year. But he's a really good player. And they might have drafted him for the wrong reasons, but who cares? How he evaluated him more as an edge guy, by evidenced by his comments about him. And Vic, to his credit, saw him more as an all-ball linebacker. And now that the Kobe's gone, he'll get his opportunity, and I think he's going to do very, very well with it.
Well, we will see. All right, good segment here on the breakout candidates. Jihad, Nolan. I had Makuba on mine, and I think you mentioned him as well. So a lot of exciting things here coming up for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Good segment there. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here. An hour down and about 55 minutes left to go here on Birds 365. John, I mentioned I want to talk to you a little bit about Zach Bond. We hit our other 3 segments that I wanted to hit on this morning. We just were deep in the linebacker discussion. Let's continue it and talk about Zach Bond a little bit. I think he's an interesting name right now, John, because you're right about him being a young 30. He's obviously been one of the best players on the team in the last 2 seasons, not just the defense. I think one of the best players on the team. He's ascended like I've never seen a player maybe ascend before when you think about him being kind of a special teams guy in New Orleans. He comes to Philadelphia and he's an all-pro linebacker. Is 30, and you do have some young, cheaper guys, behind him. You mentioned Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who looks like he can just flat out play. They do have a little bit of a contract situation looming with Carter, Cooper, Quinion, Jalen Hurts, all of these potential contracts that are coming. Where do you think Zach Bond stands on this team right now in terms of future and having a spot here and maybe even an extension? I don't know if that's something they would do. What's kind of your thought process? Just give me your brain as you rack it right now on Zach Bond and what that might look like in the future here with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, remember, they already extended him, after his first season, where he was dramatically underpaid because they thought he was a poor man's Andrew Van Ginkel.
Yeah.
Situational pass rusher, special teams player. And, Vic saw him as an all-ball linebacker and said, I think he can play, and the rest is history. First team All-Pro. Number 1 graded linebacker in all of football that year. Number one of 84. And last year was number 6 of 88. So, and I know a lot of people, well, he wasn't as good last year. Well, he wasn't. No, but that's like He was so good the year prior. You know, at the end of the Super Bowl, see, he was making a splash play every game, which is you never see that. And you talk about pass rushers at linebacker. He's the pass rusher. He's the best pass rushing all-ball linebacker in football. Great in coverage if there's, kind of average in run defense. So that's the weakness, but that's sort of baked into Vic's style anyway. Wants more of playmakers. And this guy's, I'm not going to say he's better than Fred Warner, but he's the closest thing to Fred Warner around the league. And who knows what Fred will be coming back from pretty significant injury. Yeah, I like Jeremiah Trotter. I like Chance Campbell's backup players and think they could be competent starters. This guy's a high level, all pro level starter. He's one of the best players on the team, arguably the best player on the team. And this was an example of them, the Eagles, being proactive and saying, "Yeah, we found something here." And he's under contract through 2028. Now, this will be the last year of significant guarantees, so they might have to adjust it, but there's enough room that you could easily do it. They got the 2 extra years plus the void years, so you can just move some money around. If he continues to play at the level, they're not moving on from Zach Bond. I mean, he's now the leader. And by the way, when N'Kobe got hurt, he took over the green dot, and he's the leader of the defense now.
Yeah, right. And I assume he'll have it this year, right?
Yeah. Oh. So he runs the whole defense on the field. So that's part of it as well. Yeah, I mean, they're not looking now. He's 30, as you pointed out, but the good part is he didn't play in New Orleans. It's an embarrassment for them, but he didn't play. So he doesn't have the normal tread. Like you look at certain guys, you mentioned Justin Reed at safety. Look at how much football that guy's played. He's only 29. Look at how much football he's played.
Right.
Like he is an old 29. This is a young 30.
Very young 30.
So it's not just about the number, it's about the mileage on the odometer. And Zach Bond still has plenty of it, as you see from his athleticism on a weekly basis.
I wonder what the snaps actually are. How many snaps has Bond actually played as compared to a guy like Justin Reed? I mean, I'd like to actually see what the number actually is. He is a young 30, John. I think the one thing that rings for me, just in terms of the unknown. I mean, I agree with you. I think he'll be here, but does the contract situation muddy it a little bit? It's like we do have cheaper options. They're not going to be as good, but is it an area when we're paying Cooper 28 and Quinion 33 and Jalen Carter 36 and Jalen goes up to 60 million and Devontae will probably get a bump to 30 at some, you know what I mean? Does that create them wanting to go back to what they used to be and be a little cheaper at the linebacker spot? It's hard for me to rule that out with everything looming, as good as Bond is.
Well, the easiest way to rule that out is that is a point where like Vic will move the hell on. I mean, nobody values linebackers more than Vic Fangio. So the days of trying to cobble it together with Paul Warlow and Corey Nelson and every year with the Eagles not valuing all Paul linebackers, that changed the day Vic Fangio walked in the building. If he retires, maybe. If he's here, Good luck. Good luck telling Vic that, yeah, we're going to move on from this guy, especially if he continues. Now, again, if everything's fluid, if he all of a sudden plays poorly, it's a different conversation. If he plays at that level and you think they're moving on because of his contract, no friggin' way.
All right.
He's too good. And yeah, he's been. But to the point, here's the snap counts. I was looking up the snap counts in New Orleans. Total. These are total snaps.
So including special teams?
Not including special teams.
Okay.
Defensive snaps. 102 as a rookie, 194 in his second year, 85, 303 in his last year in New Orleans, a career high. Then he played 1,204 in the run to the Super Bowl and 1,098 last year. So he literally doubled his career snap count in 1 year in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, his first 4 years, he just played special teams basically. And the Eagles, again, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. They didn't think he was this player, but he's this player. It's 2 years now. It's not one.
I know.
And even with the 1 year, you can't play at the level he did and just be a flash in the pan. I know a lot of people were concerned about going into last year. Well, can he do it again? Well, right. Probably not at that level, but you're not going to turn into a bad player if you play at that level.
Yeah, there's like degrees. That's too high of a degree. You're just a good player if you play that.
Yeah,
good.
Exactly.
Well, what kind of deal you think he'd get? I mean, it would be after this year, wouldn't it? They signed him to a 3-year extension, but as you always point out, a lot of those deals are kind of like 2-year deals, with an easy out.
Yeah, well, the guaranteed money. So that's what you look at. The guaranteed money is up after this year. The significant guaranteed money. The salary's still there. Significant. The salary's significant through 2028. But they'll have to tweak it. They'll have to give him
give him more guarantees, right? To guarantee
for
28
just
or
give
something.
him, you turn the 27 and 28 into roster bonuses and you save it on the cash. It's easy. It's easy. And they'll give him a raise and that, it's because they already have the structure built out. All they have to do is guarantee his money, give him a little bit of a bump, maybe 5-6 million, and you're off and running again. And you kick it down sort of what they did with Saquon after the Super Bowl season. You just kick it down the road an extra year by turning everything into roster bonuses and giving them a little bump. So the only thing you should be worried about is Zach Ball and his play on the field. And just as I said, I don't think that's going to be a significant drop off. So I wouldn't worry about him just yet.
No, I think Baum will be here. I think they'll give him a fat contract or whatever it is. Maybe they'll do what you just said, John, guarantee 28 with a little added money for him. But I did think it was interesting just because he's 30. I mean, is he 30? How old is he right now? Is he 30?
He's 30. Yeah.
So he is actually 30, right? He's not like
actually 30.
Says 29.
I'm looking at over the cap. Maybe they fucked it up, but
December of 96. So he'll be 30 in December.
All right. He's in his 30s, his age 30 season. Nice job over the cap. So either way, as I just gave you the snap numbers, he's played 2 seasons really from a defensive perspective in the NFL. Typically he'd be if he were a starter from a rookie, then you'd be talking about a guy who's going to be 30 in December.
Give him another 2 years in Philly. He'll be 32 at the end. That'd be fine. That'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, And linebackers an instinctive position, as I said. Look at Demario Davis, who's been one of the best linebackers in football for.
Yeah, he's old. He played till how old?
He's still playing. He's like
I know, but he's like,
35.
what is he, 38 now? No, Demario.
He just re-signed with the Jets.
He's 37.
Yeah.
37 years old.
And he still played at a high level last year, man.
Yeah.
Because he's very instinctive. Speaking of, the 6th graded linebacker in football last year was Zach Bond. Number 5 was Demario Davis.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Here's Davis over the past since he broke out. 17, 14, 1, number 1 in 2019. 5, 8, 4, 3, 19, and 5. Over a 9-year span. One of the most consistent, great players. Everybody knows him, but probably people in Philadelphia don't know him because he was on the Jets and the Saints, but he's been a really good player for a really long time.
Yep. All right, good stuff there on Zach Baum. We'll see how long he has in Philadelphia. I'm with John on that one. I don't think you'll let him go as good as he's been, and obviously when Vic Fangio is the leader of the defense. Guys, in the back half of the show here, second and bottom of the hour, we will take some questions from all the great people. So rack your brain with some questions. I will come to some of you guys here. John, the one thing I wanted to ask you is when we did the win-loss, you had what? 11 wins?
11.
And you said you'd go
up.
down or up? You said, okay, so you said you'd go up.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm sure you still feel all right about that because you kind of messed with me the other day when you were like, they were an 11-win team, but they also kind of threw in the towel for week 18. I'm like, shit, you're right. They were kind of a 12-win team last year. Was I off by saying 12 and I'd go down? I look around the league. I look at the team. I look at, the roster coming in, at the division. I think the Eagles are going to win 12 ball games. Maybe not easily, but I think 12 ball games is right there for them.
Yeah, potentially. Concerned with age and descent on the offense. I've said it pretty consistently. If the offensive line, if the starting 5 plays 17 games, which is not going to happen, but if they do, they're going to win 13, 14 games. But I mean, that's what you're doing. The odds are that they're not going to stay healthy, and you're going to have to play Drew Kendall at some point, and maybe Fred Johnson or Markel Bell. Jalen Hurts. Sorry, looks like a descending player to me because they've taken away, or he's taken away, or someone's taken away the +1 in the running game. The wide receivers group is not as good for obvious reasons. Dallas Goedert's descending. Saquon's descending. A lot of negatives on the offensive side. Growing pains with Sean Mannion. In a situation where people don't accept growing pains. But I think the floor is very high because of the defense. I think, and that's why I don't think. Like I could see things breaking to where the offense is, an 8-9 win offense for a description, but the defense is not going to allow that. It's too good, too gifted, too talented. And you see that as we do our top 25, you see the shift from for so long it was offense at the top, and now it's probably going to be defense.
Agreed. We will see what all happens with it, Johnny Mac. Interesting stuff here for the Philadelphia Eagles. July 10th today. They report when? July 28th, right? 18 days out. Yeah. What's kind of the rundown, John, for camp? I mean, what you said they get there and it's kind of a slower pickup Remind me,
Yeah.
I'm blanking on what camp looks like for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, I'd love to tell you the schedule, but the
No,
schedule's
I know
not
you're
out.
not giving me that.
The schedule's not out yet, but there's a 5-day acclimation period, which is basically you can't have the pads on, obviously. It's actually might be 6 days. Let me look that up. No, it's 5 days. On field acclimation period. So basically, um, that's a way to ramp everybody up. And it is, if you think about the old days and you see Jalen Hurts and guys working out down in Orlando, you see those pictures. If you follow other teams, same thing happening with other teams. One of those reasons you don't want to be laying on the couch for 6-7 weeks and show up and all of a sudden you're going to have a bunch of soft tissue injuries. So, they have the acclimation period where, um, it's lighter practices. It's not, no on pad work, no really ramped up full go periods. Um, and then from that point forward, you can start wearing the pads. And things really ramp up from that standpoint. But it's actually smart especially from a soft tissue standpoint, because guys used to come in and just full go, and all of a sudden they pull hamstrings and calves and things like that. So it does make some sense, but don't expect the pads to
Fangio was
come.
raging about that a little bit on DeJean's podcast, wasn't he? He's talking about
Yeah, I mean, Vic always does that.
Yeah, he always does.
I
Right?
mean, they practice more than they did before, but they have given in to Vic a little bit, not nearly as much as Vic would like, but they do practice a little bit more than they used to. So there's a little bit of give and take, but yeah, I mean, Vic hates that. He hates it. He hates all that. He wants to practice. He'd do 2-a-days if he could.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. I'm sure he would. He said on DeJean's podcast, the NFL does players a disservice. It's the structure's fault, not the players. But I mean, I guess he's right. But I mean, it's kind of a old man, get off my, just because there's nothing that's going to be done about it, no matter what,
Well,
no matter how right he is.
Well, Vic knows it's collectively bargained. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not like the Eagles are everybody has to do that. Now the Eagles, as I said, they do leave. There are a limit. I'll look that up too. I think it's maybe 12 padded practices you're allowed to have. And then you have, that's also limited in when you go into the regular season as well. All this stuff is collectively bargained. All of it. So, all right, here we go. I'm a little bit low. It's 16, maximum of 16 padded practices during the preseason. The acclimation is 5 days, as I said, where you can wear helmets and light shells, but not permitted to engage in live contact. So it's sort of like an extension of the spring. When you do have a padded practice, it cannot exceed 2.5 hours. I don't believe the Eagles have ever had one practice over 2 hours since Nick has gotten here. You can only hold a maximum of 3 consecutive days in pads. So all of this stuff is collectively bargained, all of it. And, I haven't counted in the past. I will, since you brought this up. So they're permitted 16. I guarantee you they don't use 16 padded practices. I guarantee it. That's the maximum number you can have.
What do you think the Eagles will have?
Probably 12-ish would
That's
be
what I was
my
thinking.
guess. They usually leave a little bit of meat on the bone. Examples, you could have had 10 OTA practices. They had 6. Could have had 3 days of mandatory minicamp. They had 2. They always leave a little meat on the bone, but it's hard to argue with them because they've had tremendous health compared to other teams, and tremendous success compared to other teams as well. So if they were losing, you'd really be harping on that, but they're not. So, but all of this is, to your point, Vic can complain all he wants. There's nothing the Eagles can do about it.
Yeah, right.
These things are strictly limited.
Yeah, and we're just going to keep watching. The first month of football is going to get uglier and uglier and uglier, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, in the regular season, you can only have 14 padded practices during the whole regular season, and weeks 1 through, this is how arcane it gets. From weeks 1 through 11, you can have 1 per week allowed. And from 12 to 18, so that's 6 weeks, there's only 3 padded practices allowed that entire span. So you got to use them judiciously.
Yeah, right.
Some of these things, like, what does Nick Sirianni do? They figure out where to put those 14 padded practices. Things like that. The logistics are ridiculous. Because again, you have to adhere to all these rules that have been collectively bargained.
So they report the 28th, and then it will probably not ramp up until early August, I would say. How many days are in July? I got to look. I don't even
31.
know. 31. So they're reporting that Tuesday, and then the pads will probably come on the following week. So we'll see what that looks like for the Philadelphia Eagles. When are their preseason? They got 3 preseason games. Those are snooze fest. Everybody loves the first one, and because they're just excited for the Eagles to come back.
Well,
and then by the second quarter of the first one, everybody's completely and utterly checked out on the preseason and is ready for Eagle football, which is always pretty funny.
Yeah, it's that this year they have joint practices up in Foxborough, which will be obviously a big deal with AJ.
Right.
And tentatively, this is tentative. I project the first Eagles padded practice to be August 4th, but that's tentative.
First padded practice, you said August 4th?
Yeah.
So that'd be the week after, right? Following Tuesday. All right, good stuff. We'll see what that looks like for everybody. I do want to take some questions from all the great people in the chat. I think Jason A-Team's kidding. He says preseason is the best football, in my opinion. Jason, are you saying that because it's a bunch of dudes fighting for a roster spot? It's still not very good football. I mean, they're just not. It's just not the best.
Good football.
Yeah,
you won't see any starters or key players in that preseason game against New England. The starters will get all the work in the joint practices in advance.
What do you think it'll be like with AJ in the
I'm sure
practice?
I'm sure people will hype it up to no end. It'll be a must-win practice, according to Elliot. Must-win practice.
AJ
must-win practice. Close circuit to Elliot, my buddy, good dude. There's no such thing as a must-win practice.
Yes, this is true. Elliot captures the Eagle fans, though, John.
Oh, he sure does.
Yes, he does.
The grift is real. The grift is real.
Yeah, it is. No doubt about it. All right, good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, I'd hate to do this to you on a Friday. I'm not seeing any questions from the people come in. If I set some unders here on the year, I know you'll hate it.
Did you see that DraftKings or whatever the bullshit fan. I don't want
With Harper?
Yeah. Did you see that?
I saw that, man.
This freaking guy's losing $2 million. Not Bryce Harper, but
His
for those
his
who,
house. I mean,
his house. He's thinking about committing suicide. People got to ease up on the gambling, man. Oof.
John, these leagues should have never done this, man.
No, they shouldn't have.
I was saying yesterday, it's tough for me too because I hate the crap, but the number one sponsor in all sports, not only in sports leagues but in sports media right now, is gambling companies.
No, I know.
We got to keep the lights on, but it's like, whoo, man.
There's no way to avoid it, but there is a way to avoid it. I mean, for people like us, there's no way to avoid it. For these leagues, there's a way to avoid it. They avoided it for years, and in my opinion, they went down the wrong route. Due to greed, and it's usually greed, but for years, I'm old enough to remember, and I joke because I'm old enough to remember everything. But a couple of years ago, the NFL wouldn't let Tony Romo do a fantasy football convention, in Las Vegas, because they were so dead set against any form of gambling whatsoever. And now they're in bed with every. And the whole goal, the entire time, the whole goal was the integrity of the game. It was all bullshit. It was like, how do we monetize it? Like, we're not giving you money off our product for all these, gambling situations, whether it's fantasy related or poly market or whatever. How do we make money off it? How do we monetize our product? And as long as they get to monetize it, they're fine. But you're going to have scandal after scandal after scandal. It's just going to happen because people get in, you can talk about the guys who make $60 million and say, well, you're not going to get to them. But there's a lot of offensive linemen who make, $600,000 that turns into $300,000 real quick after taxes, and if they lose a couple bets, they're in deep and hey, go miss a block. Who the fuck's going to know that?
I know. So true.
So I don't even, I hate when everybody not trying and this guy's not trying, and we've already seen it in basketball. There's this guy shaving points.
Yeah.
Some idiot was working harder. I forget who that was, trying to get a rebound because he bet on himself to go over.
Oh, yeah, that was more recent. I saw that one. What was that?
It's like
Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, all those guys got.
It's like, what are we doing here, man?
And it's even more interesting, and this is, I guess, a little bit more in your line. I mean, Adam Schefter, who's like one of the top, whatever you want to call them, guys covering the National Football League.
Yeah,
I mean, he even has an investment in one of these gambling entertainment company.
Yeah,
it's like, so the owners of the team, you got Kraft, Jerry Jones are direct, investors in DraftKings. Now you have Adam Schefter is investing in gambling company. Like, you get where I'm coming from here. I mean, you got owner, you got reporter, you got
web is. Don't even get me started with the reporter stuff that came up with Rossini. It's like, and you see it, Seth's piece was awesome. So I encourage everybody to read Seth Wickersham's piece, Being Embedded with the Broncos. Phenomenal. If you want to learn about the league. But, certain guys are provided access that other people aren't. And it's always been that way. It will always be that way. But when you start mixing to the point of what you're talking about, it's clearly not following journalistic principles. Let's put it that way.
I think that's the least of it too. The journalistic principles. I mean, that's obviously a part of it, but it's like, at what point do they not nip the conflict of interest in the bud? I mean,
the toothpaste is out of the tube now. They're the scandals are coming. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. I just don't know how you can have a dude like Adam Schefter allow him to invest in a gambling company when he's on the payroll to cover the league. I mean, it just feels so.
Well, that's an ESPN. That's not an NFL thing.
No, it's not. You're right. It's not an NFL, it's an ESPN thing. But I mean, they're kind of all in bed with each other, aren't they? I mean, ESPN did just buy the NFL
ESPN
network.
owns part of the NFL network.
Yeah.
They own not part of. They own the entire thing. Yeah, they're all in bed with each other. Yeah, but I mean, in theory, in that specific instance, Adam Schefter's an employee of ESPN, not or ABC. It would be, but Disney, not the NFL. So I mean, that's an ESPN Disney problem, not an NFL problem. But the NFL's got plenty of problems of their own.
Yeah, they do. You're right about that. All right, no doubt about it. Let me look for some questions from the great people of JAKIB Nation. It's a football Friday, everybody. I hope everybody has a great weekend out there. We got about 20 minutes left to go on the show. Here's Big William. What's up, Big William? Johnny Mac, do you think Saquon can be a one-cut back?
Yeah, I think he's been a one cut back. The question is, can he be, as I pointed out, gets in trouble when he tries to stretch things and he tries to kick things outside. He's at best when he's doing the jump cut, and going and hitting the hole and going. This is interesting because in theory, it requires more patience. He says he doesn't think it does, but we're going to see. He had his football camp, which was rained out in Haddonfield yesterday. They mentioned something about the offense not being that much different. I don't think we're going to see much difference in the offense, but that's just a guess at this point. I mean, but when Fowler was, I thought it was interesting when Fowler was doing his top 10 running backs. And they're not his top 10. He's doing the survey of league executives. There were two sort of polarizing views, and I'm trying to get the quotes as I'm talking here from whatever it was, GMs or scouts, but trying to get Saquon. So Saquon was third overall. The one person said, and the positive was, I'm not going to penalize him for a terrible all-around offense last year. He's still a 3-down weapon, and if I needed a running back for one season, I'm still taking him number one. That's the positive. I think Bijan's the best running back in football now. Jahmyr Gibbs probably 2, and then you could start talking about Saquon was third. Coming off last season, I don't think he should be that high, but he's still 6'7", whatever. And then you had a coordinator saying, my only criticism is that he doesn't always produce when things aren't completely clean. That's dating back to the Giants, tends to need things perfectly set up for him. That was certainly the case in 2024. I mean, that was historic performance, not only by him, but by the offensive line. Last season, when things got muddy, he didn't look that good. And I don't think the offensive line was as bad as people said it was. So I don't expect him to be one of the top 5 running backs in football this season. But number 6 isn't bad. Can he be number 6? Or is he going to be like last year? He wasn't. He's probably 20 something. You got to be better than that. But I think the days of being top 5 are probably over.
Fair enough. Good stuff there. Here we got another question from, who is it? Original Philly, I saw. I don't know where the question went. Oh, here it is. Will we see more of Tank this season?
Only if Saquon is unable to play. Now a little bit because they picked up Tank in season. I don't want to say that name too high. Bigsby. It's my dog's name is Tank, but um, he'll carry it more than he carried it for the Eagles last season. But he was acquired in season. I don't think you're going to see a drastic. Saquon's a 3-down back, and he's going to stay a 3-down back. They're not taking him off the field to get more touches for Tank Bigsby, is what I'm trying to say. And if they do, he's either playing really, really poorly, which I don't think is going to happen, or he's hurt, which is a possibility, but you don't want that.
Yeah, I kind of like Tank, but I don't know how much they're going to do it. I'm with John. I think they're going to. I think they're going to run Saquon into the ground this year, if that makes sense.
Yep, run him till the wheels go off. And Will Shipley remains the best receiving option, but he's got to prove that he can handle the other options to for the Eagles to take advantage of that.
Yep. Fair enough. All right, good stuff. John, what's your thought on at this point on Mekhi Lemon? Like, we haven't talked about him recently. At least I'm sure you did when I was gone, but I don't know if we have this week. I don't know what to make of the expectation for him this year. Like, is he going to be the 2? Is he not? Is he going to be the 4? I mean, are they going to play freaking Hollywood Brown and Wicks before him? Like, I don't know what to expect from Mekhi Lemon this year coming in. Should I expect a Devontae Smith level rookie year? Probably not.
No, I would not. I think that's a different level of player. And that's not an insult. I think, early on, Dontavian Wicks will be the number 2 receiver. He's got the history in the offense. He's got the history with the offensive coordinator. He understands the offense. But I think Mekhi Lemon's better and will eventually, at some point during the season, take over that wide receiver 2 role. I don't expect it to be week 1. If it is week 1, he's ahead of schedule, and that's good. But if he falls down, if Hollywood Brown's playing more, that's bad news. That's bad. Or even if Wicks holds the wide receiver 2 the whole season, I would say that's a bad sign. So I think he'll be good, but not great. And I think that will probably, I'll tell you what, he's not the athlete that typically top 20 picks are at receiver.
You think he was overdrafted? I mean, he was what, the 4th or 5th receiver taken in the draft?
I mean, it depends. Like the hype coming in where the Rams were going to take him at 12 or 13, wherever the Rams were. They took Ty Simpson. That there was so much hype that the Rams are going to take him at that high. So I think that became the group think. There's a lot of group think in the draft. So I think the perception is that the Eagles got a value. I think if you look at the traits, he ran a 4.53. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's more of a slot receiver, obviously, in college. Typically, those guys don't go top 20. And that's where he went. So it kind of depends how you look at it. I think there's too many athletic deficiencies to be a superstar player, but that doesn't mean he can't, gain separation by route running. And that's why the comparisons are, the high level comparisons are Amon-Ra St. Brown and people like that who are, they shouldn't be as good as they are, but they are as good as they are. So that's the way I think he would have to do it as well. But I am concerned about the speed and lack of size.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll see what that looks like. John, here's another question here from Rasputin. How much 11 personnel are they playing this year?
More than anything else, obviously, the goal is to get I can't say the goal, but most Shanahan, McVay especially are want to be a heavy 11, but yeah, you have to have the personnel to do it. Good coaches, Sean McVay last year shifted to a lot heavier sets for a couple reasons. One, everybody's going light on defense, so you shift from that. But they got four good tight ends last year, and then they have 5 good tight ends on paper. So they had the personnel to do it. The Eagles probably don't have the personnel any longer at wide receiver to go 80% 11 personnel. So, but they'll probably be about 50, 55 would be my guess. 55% 11. Probably want to be a little bit higher than that.
We'll see what that looks like this year for the Eagles with everything. So good stuff, everybody. Any other comments I will take from all of you guys? Rico says this. We talked about this a little earlier in the show. Who are the kick and punt returners, Johnny Mac?
Good question. Well, we talked about punt returners. There's no obvious answer to that at the stage. Now, Britton's still here. He was injured in the spring. And remember, if you're keeping Britton Covey, you generally, I don't want to say wasting a roster spot because he's a very good punt return, but you're not going to get a lot of help at receiver. And you can play the practice squad game early in the season, so you don't have to keep him on the 53 early. You can just elevate him for the first 3 weeks. Then there tends to be an injury somewhere along the way, and it takes care of itself. They might go that route. That would be the easiest route. The guys taking reps were Cooper DeJean, who obviously we talked about. They're not going to allow him to do it. And, Devontae was back there. They're obviously not going to allow him to do it. So there's no obvious answer at punt return. They had a couple of the tryout guys who they never signed. So they're obviously not going to be involved. Hollywood Brown was back there a little bit. He doesn't have an extensive. Elijah Moore doesn't have an extensive history and hasn't been good at it. So they have an issue at punt returner unless they default to Britton Covey. Kickoff returner, it's same as last year. Will Shipley will probably do the lion's share of it, but they'll split it. And who's going to make the team? Well, Damian Pierce isn't probably going to make the team. Tank was terrible at it when he came over. They talked it up. He'll be on the team. Maybe they give him an opportunity. And then the backup, that's where maybe Elijah Moore, if he makes the team, or Hollywood Brown could potentially help as a kick returner. But I would say Will's probably the most likely to get the majority of the kick returns. Not a positive on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
could be.
Makes that Cooper DeJean convo you had earlier more interesting. Yeah. I don't think they'll do that though, right?
No, they're not going to do it. That's what I would do at punt return. They're not going to do it.
Will they not do it, or will Vic Fangio not let them do it?
Well, Vic's not in charge, so I don't want to give Vic. Vic wouldn't like it. They could do it. Nick will do what he deems worthy. And remember, Nick is the one who said in season last year, yeah, we're going to play under center, so get on board to Jeff Stoutland. And Jeff Stoutland did want to get on board, and we are where we are. He will, if he feels that Cooper DeJean needs to be the punt returner, he will make him the punt returner. But I believe the whole organization doesn't think that's the way to go. And I just, that the whole NFL thinks that way. And I just disagree with it. It's a group thing.
Fair enough. All right, good stuff, Rico. Mark, appreciate that. Here, everybody. Makai Lemon's not an option there, is he, John?
No. Same thing. You know, he's going to play too much on offense, but he's not really again, he's got 4.53 speed. Generally, the difference between the punt returner's got to be able to make the first guy miss. You got to have short area quickness, and you got to go, and you got to have instincts. Kickoff return, you need to be a big time kickoff returner. You need long speed. And 4.53 is probably not what you're looking for.
Yeah. John, all right, 5 minutes left in the show today. The thing I'll end on, we talked a little bit about Tom Brady on with the Kelsey brothers. And he got asked a question, which was like, he like almost laughed at it as like it's a stupid thing that people talk about Brady or Bell, you know, who was more important to the dynasty. And Tom's basically like, I mean, come on, you know, we're not doing that without Bill, you know, at all. But one thing he said that stuck out to me, and it made me wonder, will Eagle fans ever give Nick Sirianni even a shred of credit? Because I fight these guys all the time, especially in the afternoon show. Cilio thinks Nick is a stiff. Everybody who listens to Cilio thinks Nick is a stiff. A lot of the viewers we have in here today think Nick is a stiff. And Tom said this. He said, there is nobody in any organization more important to winning football games between Monday and Saturday than the head coach. Now, when the game comes, obviously the players, you know, have to go and win the football game. But Tom saying that was interesting to me because I'm like, boy, overseeing the winningest era of Eagle football ever. And the people still think Nick Sirianni's like dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to those people. I mean,
it's a lot of them, John.
There's a lot of illogical people. I mean, there's like the assumption is, well, the Eagles win despite Nick Sirianni. Is my guess is what the thesis is, and it's like, I mean. Okay, then why do you give so much credence to Sean Mannion as the play caller? If you're winning despite, you know, the guy with the 5th greatest winning percentage, why do you give a shit who the offensive coordinator is or the play caller or this or that? You know, just roll the balls out there. You got the best team, the best talent. Right. You know, they contradict themselves by their. This is where Johnny Logic comes out. It's a complete contradiction. You can't have it both ways. So yeah, I mean, and then the second part of it is what Tom was saying there, and that's again one of the reasons I recommend reading Seth Wickersham's piece on Sean Payton and the Broncos.
Yeah, that was a really good piece.
Like the bet. 90% of the people who are big football fans and who listen to this show and may be really smart about the game, they don't know how much goes on between Monday and Saturday. So to them, it's all they see is the finished product. The amount of work that goes into it from Monday through Saturday, what Tom was talking about is enormous. It's like, you know, I think, you know, the idea, if you go back to that, people are calling up plays or drawing up plays on the sideline, man, they got 70 plays locked in. Every scenario, every situation, what if this comes up? What if this comes up? If there's a situation that comes back and you don't have something on that play sheet that's not prepared for it, you haven't done your job from Monday through Saturday. It's an enormous job, which I talk about all the time, and that's not defending Nick. That's every NFL head coach. It's an enormous job to the point where every coach I've talked about, the only thing they have in common is they're always asked the question, is there anything the first-time head coach, is there anything you didn't expect? And they all say to him, man, I didn't realize how much non-football I had to deal with. Some of the logistics. How many fans are thinking about, all right, you have 16 padded practices. You have 30 padded practices to use from now, from July 28th to September, whenever the first day, September 10th, whatever it is. You have 16. And then from September 10th through week 18, you have 14 or 13, whatever I said it was. Something as simple as that. You think anybody's thinking about that? No. If they have a bad tackling day, put the pads on them. How many times do you hear that?
Right.
Put the pads on them. Well, you only got 3 padded practices to use from weeks 11 to week 17. You better be freaking judicious with it. There's so much. I always compare. They always say the world's oceans are like 85%, whatever the number is, uncharted. That's like the NFL. There's so much under the surface that is uncharted that people have no idea that what goes on. So and then the biggest dummy in the world for so many of these people is beating the people they think are geniuses. How does that equate? Again, well, then you say, well, he's got the best talent. No, he doesn't. You think he does. Because the game is fluid. He might on defense now. He doesn't on offense. Not even close on offense. But you can't win to the level that he's won and be a bad coach. It's just not possible.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, great show. Your final thoughts here on a football Friday. We'll have a full week tomorrow, next week, and then we'll be almost there, dude. We're like just over 2 weeks. So we have 2 more full weeks left until the Eagles will report to training camp. And once they report to training camp, season's here, baby.
Yeah. Well, I would disagree with you. I wish we could skip training camp as well, but we can't because that's
but at least there's something. I mean, at least there's something.
That's the whole problem. And so much of it is the preparation, the teaching, which again is things that are under the surface. And yeah, I haven't seen that clip from Tom, but every time Tom does something like this, he comes up with some interesting tidbits that educate people on the NFL. And his point on Monday through Saturday is a point I've tried to make a million times, but he's Tom Brady. So hopefully more people listen to him.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, great show today, my friend. I will catch up with you on Monday. All right, great week of shows. Good to be back, John. I'll talk to you Monday. All right, brother. Have a good weekend.
All right, thanks. All have a good weekend.
You too, man. All right, John. Thank you, brother. There's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. How's everybody doing on this football Friday? Your boy Big Z's got to go pick up his U-Haul. All the companies you guys gave me, none of them worked more than the U-Haul. I think I got an Uber, though. I got no car. My car's destroyed right now, for those who don't know. So I have no car, so I have to Uber, I think, over to get my U-Haul. It's like 15 minutes away. So I'll be doing that. I've been relegated. I'm moving in this weekend, obviously. That's why I'm trying to get it. That's why I'm getting a U-Haul. Not Rasputin. I'm not pods. I can't do pods. Not yet. It's my first move in Rasputin, so I don't have that much shit. And then I got to go to Costco and buy a furniture and couch and a bed frame. Holy crap. We move in this weekend though. I've been relegated to the garage. I'm doing a show right now from the garage. Can you believe that? Could you tell? You couldn't tell, could you? Look at this. I got the garage behind me. There's all my shit that's going into my place. There's all the shit that's going into my place. I've been relegated to the garage to do the show. All right. So I'm doing the show today live, coming to you live from the garage. What happened? I get married and I'm chopped liver. I'm sent to the freaking garage. All right. So, but all right, we'll see. Yeah, we got a slider in the garage. It's one of those sliding door out there to the back. It is a garage. Wait, you guys want to see? Look at this badass. This is one of the best wedding gifts I got. You know, everybody gets you like a fucking blender and shit. I'm like, how many more blenders do we need? Like, I got a blender, I got a Vitamix. I'm like, all right, blenders, really? But this is a gift that we got that I welcomed with open arms. This is a badass gift right here. Look at this thing. This is a badass gift. The good old Yeti cooler in freaking red, baby. A freaking red Yeti cooler. How about that? So that is a tight gift. That's a tight gift. It is a real garage, Ryan. It's a townhouse, and it's one of the townhouses that the whole bottom floor is a garage. So I don't know what you mean. It's not a real garage. It's like 100% a real garage. Got bikes over there and shit. There's my Blackstone that came on my registry. What do you mean? No, real. Your garage doesn't look like my garage, so it's not a real garage. Oh, is that right, little rhyme? Am I moving further out? I'm going to Bucksco. Bucksco, baby. Bucks County is where your boy will be living. Here's Jerry. What up, Jerry? As a musician, I was wondering what kind of gear you're using. I need new gear. I got a Shure microphone. I have a Universal Audio Volt 876 and the SM4B is nice. The volume is great because it has a built-in 1176 compressor. Yeah, I have a SM7B. This is an MV7 because it's just a podcast one. It's easy to be versatile with, move it around. But once I set up my central studio, I think I'm going to be. I think I will be. I think I'll use the 7B. Don't shit on the line. Yeah, Curtis, I got fucking 3 of them behind me, dude. Everybody wanted to buy the Vitamix. I'm like, honey, call these people and tell them to refund and give me cold, hard cash. Fucking, how many Vitamixes do we need? If I want a Vitamix, I'll buy it myself. No, not Doylestown. Not Doylestown. It is a big garage. I will admit that. It's the whole bottom. It's the whole bottom floor. It's the whole bottom floor. Dude, I got like 3 of them right. Look, I can probably find them all right now. Here's one. Where's all the other ones? I know I got multiple of them. I know I did. Second one. Here's the second one. This one looks a little smaller. I don't know if you can see me over here. Second one. I mean, how many Vitamixes does a man need? How many Vitamixes does a man need? There's no basement means underground, Tyler, you stiff. Coffee sucks here without it. You're right, Rasputin. Coffee sucks here. They're premium blend. You sound like my wife. Well, one's a food processor, one's a blender, one's a juicer. I'm like, what? What? I mean, come on. Doylestown's nice, though. I don't know what you mean. Doylestown's real nice. Tony, that's what I'm saying, bro. Where's the cash? Where's the cash? What the F? It should be green. If you're an Eagle fan, your whole life needs to be green. You should have a green house with green shutters and green rugs and a green bed with a green comforter with a green cooler. Is that right, Twiz? Is your side-by-side green, Twiz? You doofus. What did Sills get you? Sills didn't get me shit. What do you mean, Rasputin? Sills didn't get me shit. Newtown, that's where I'm headed, Rasputin. Newtown. I'm going to have salsa. Whatever. I mean, are you kidding me? Sills didn't get me shit. Look, here's Tecma. That's why I'm still single. I can't find a green wife. Tecma, that's hilarious. Oh, man. You'll be putting stiffs from the chat in those blenders all season. That's correct. That's funny. That's funny. No, you're not going to tour the house, Ryan. What do you think you are? Cold heart. Anybody want? I have a Vitamix for sale. Does anybody want it? I will sell it for 20% over MSRP. 20% over MSRP. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Sig Lord, I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that's true at all. Sig Lord. Is this the end of the morning? No, it's the beginning of it. Dre, man. Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta get my U-Haul so I can load up my blenders and my red cooler that Twiz doesn't approve of. Yes, you're right. There you go, Siglord. I was gonna say, there's no way. There's no Siglord. What do you think I am? Mayan? What do you think I am? Mayan out here? Secunda? Is that right? Sil said the gift was on the. So come on. So whenever Sil says something, you just take it with a grain of salt. All right, take it with a grain of salt. Guys, this isn't an Eagles channel. Z lost faith a while ago. He can fill his house with inferior colors and flags if he wants to. I don't hang Eagle flags in my house. Thanks, Prince. Appreciate you, brother. Mine, I live in a red county. Why does it blow, mine? That's true, Sig. That's fair. That's fair. Prince, I don't know what these people even. I know Bird Gang Girl. I know you do. I know you do. I know. I guess some people do. It's not really good. It's not my MO. Definitely not my MO. I do have the Blackstone over there, so I will be cooking up for all the people who said I'm a stiff on the who said I'm a stiff on the cook. Your boy is gonna be grilling the meats. All right. Your boy will be grilling. All right, I'm out of here. You guys are a bunch of fucking haters. You guys are a bunch of haters. I mean, you guys want me keeping 34 Vitamix blenders and everything. I got a Blackstone for fun. Nice, Ryan. Can't wait to use it. That thing will be collecting dust for the next 3 years. Who you kidding, Ryan? That thing's Father's Day was a month ago. What happened? What happened? Father's Day was 3 weeks ago, Ryan. You still haven't taken the thing out of the box? It's all my wife. That's all right. She can do what she wants with them. She can have the Vitamixes. I'll make money elsewhere. I'll get the money elsewhere. All right. Do you know how to cook? Yeah, but you tell me, do I look like I know how to cook? I'm excited for the Vitamix. Yeah, me too, Rice. I'm happy you're excited. You and my wife are both excited about it. All right, I love all you guys. Anything else I can show you? Anything else I can show you? Oh, my wife did. Oh, there, look, another blender, guys. It's a Cuisinart. It's a Cuisinart. A cast iron pan. Here's some glass jars. I love how women say men need all the toys. I got a garage full of toys for the women. What else you got? Say, James, you want to come over and pay me cash for any of this stuff? Oh, man. I live in Maryland. Oh, the Northeast is great. I love the Northeast. I think the Northeast is a great spot for Mike, what would we do without him? I don't know that we would live without him. What would we do? What would we do without the glass jars? I do not know. What else is over there? Anything? A Cuisinart. I mean, we got a Vitamix. We got a Cuisinart. We got a food processor. I digress. All right, I'm out of here. Let me go and get Prince. I'm thinking the garage, get my studio. You're right, Prince. And the outside. The outside's for me. I'll make the Blackstone. I'll freaking get a nice little setup outside so I can grill some meats. Come on, man. All right. I love all you guys. Hit that like button. It's good to be back, everybody. Did you miss me? Did you miss me? I missed you. All right. Love all you guys. Peace, everybody.